Hey everybody, it's Craig Fitzgerald from BDR Automotive in Holliston, Massachusetts. And as promised, we're going to go over some of these oil filters and see what the differences are between these. They're sort of arranged in order of price. So this is the cheapest. This is the MicroGard filter. Usually get these from someplace like O'Reilly. These are both CarQuest filters. The CarQuest Red is kind of like a middle price, and the CarQuest Blue is the more expensive filter. So we're going to see what the differences are between these things. The first thing you notice right away is that these are essentially the same base plates all the way across. They actually have the same markings on them. You can see these little markings that say L16, 4, 3. That's on all of these. So the base plates are almost exactly the same, and it looks like the gaskets on the bottom are almost exactly the same too. And actually the manufacturer of these things, Wix, manufactures all of these. Wix and Purolator have the same parent company, so there's a lot of similarities between some of these things. You start to see the differences. The components in these things, this is just a little spacer plate that keeps the cartridge filter inside from moving around. There's the canister itself, that's the filter, and inside there's a check valve, or a bypass valve. And then you can see inside, that's where your oil is going to go through there. It's going to go through those holes. Some of the more expensive filters you see, that has a spiral inside it that's supposed to sort of direct oil through the filter more efficiently. And then the last piece of this is this is just a backflow preventer. Essentially, it goes in the bottom here. And what that does is it keeps the oil from going back through those holes without being filtered. So it'll allow oil to go through this way, but it won't allow oil to go through that way. So the big differences that we found in these three filters, first of all, is the quality of this material. This is rubber, and it works fine. I mean, if you're going to change it every 3,000 miles, it's going to work. It's going to work fine. If you let that go any further, these tend to get a little brittle, and they sort of turn to plastic a little bit. And this is essentially the same gasket material. In the more expensive filters, you're going to notice that this is silicone, and this is going to last a lot longer, up to 5,000-6,000 miles without issue. When you take these out and they're soaked with oil and they've gone through a bazillion heat cycles, they're still soft. They still hold their form. They snap right back. So that's a nice quality component in the more expensive filters. Secondly, the number of pleats. These are all the same media inside. They're just essentially a paper media. The more expensive filters that you find are going to be almost like a fiberglass material. And the other thing that's a little bit different in these is how they're pinched together. This one has this metal clamp, and the rest of these just have, they're just kind of folded over paper. The more expensive filters also will have a cage, it's like a mesh that goes around the pleats, and that kind of keeps everything together. It keeps the pleats a little more uniform. You'll see in some of these that there's sort of big gaps in here, and as the filters get cheaper, the gaps get more, and they get more kind of a little bit haphazard in here. And this one was kind of the same way. Inside here, there's a spring. The spring, we didn't really kind of tear that filter apart to see what that spring was made out of, but they're all going to be like a chrome steel spring. Let's see. The other thing was the number of pleats. So we counted the pleats in here. This one's got 54 pleats. This one's also got 54 pleats. These things are essentially the same. The more expensive filter has 60 pleats. So, the idea is more pleats, and it will more efficiently trap small particles in the paper, in the filter media, without cycling it through your engine. The difference in efficiency, you can find out the efficiencies of all of these filters. They're rated, they've been tested. This one is 90% or 95% efficient to 29 microns, so that's the size of the particles that it's going to trap. So 95% effective to 29 microns, 95% to 29 microns, so essentially the same. This one is 97% effective at 20 microns, so it's more efficient with a smaller to a smaller degree of particles in here. So it'll trap a smaller particle more efficiently than either of these two will. So for the difference between the price difference between this one and the most expensive one, it's a couple of bucks. I mean, it's not really super expensive to pick up this versus this. I mean, you're looking at maybe $8 for this versus $3 for this one. So a $5 difference. This is a much more efficient filter, and it's also got sort of more heavy duty components that are going to last a lot longer if you're going to stretch your oil changes out to longer than the 3,000 miles that people typically change their oil at. Again, the big difference between these and the super expensive filters are the media. The media is definitely going to be different. It's not going to be paper. It's going to be something almost like a fiberglass. And you're almost always going to find that that these are silicone rather than rubber. So that's the big difference. Give us a call if you want to kind of investigate this a little bit further and get a little better understanding of what's going on. Thanks a lot.